Hey, guys, Alex Pelzer here, your voice manager. I unmute the voice of women who are ready to speak up about what has kept them silent for way too long. And it's another episode of the Speak Easy podcast. Guys, can you hear the excitement in my voice? It's because today's guest is someone that I've been following for quite some time. And I've seen her fierce, okay, in true form. I've seen her for several years do some phenomenal things when it comes to empowering and educating women. And listen, opening up the platform, connecting, networking. Listen, anything that comes with being a powerhouse in the speaking industry, I've watched her do it. And so I'm excited because I know that right now we're kind of in this uneasy space. And this is going to be the conversation that gets you over the hump. But it also is going to be the conversation that makes that next hump. You're going to look at that next hump and just take a sledgehammer to it, because we're no longer going to get stuck. We're no longer getting sidetracked. And this is going to be the conversation for that. So with that being said, hello, Nicole.
Yay, I'm so excited. I'm trying to contain my excitement, especially because we talked before we started. So I'm like, okay, stay calm. But yes, I cannot wait to pour in to all of you that are here with us today. So yes.
Oh my goodness, it's going to be absolutely amazing. So guys, first and foremost, let's start here. Nicole, let them know a little bit about yourself and then we'll dive. I'm ready to go. Let's tell them about yourself and then we'll dive into today's topic.
So I know you're probably going to ask me a question about this, but I feel like I want to set the landscape by telling my story and really my journey of how I've gotten to this place, right? And so I've been doing this for 27 years. I said 27, even though I'm only 28. Yes, manage that, right? So I started in 1993. So some 17 years in, I had gotten my business to the place that I had been dreaming of when I got started. So this was by 2010. So I'm worrying my story's that long. So literally by 2010, I had two divisions in my business. Back then I had a nonprofit working with African-American teenage girls. And then I had a for-profit coaching women in the same way I'm doing now to really understand what your purpose is and how to build businesses around it. And so in my nonprofit, I had 10 chapters in 10 states, and we were growing by leaps and bounds, right? In my for-profit, I had a max out coaching client roster, meaning I couldn't take another client. So in 2010, I wrote my first book, right? And so when my first book came out, and let me say this, I wrote my first book just because I wanted to raise money for my nonprofit and then really be able to still give women something since I couldn't take on any more clients. And so when that book came out, and that's my fourth book behind me. But when my first book came out, literally, I started getting invitations to speak all over the country. And so I'm starting in this place because I know many of you are speakers. If you're not already speaking, you want to be. And so that's what I wanted to do when I started my business, by the way. So now I had finally made it. Every single weekend, I had a women's empowerment event. I'm at an entrepreneurial symposium. I'm at a Christian conference. I'm doing something. And I loved every minute of it. But here's the thing. I was only making $13,000 a year. 13 less than the poverty level. So yes, I used to say I had a daytime job to pay for my nighttime calling, right? And so I remember this moment and the reason I wanted to share this story with you, I remember this particular moment. It was my breakthrough. I didn't realize then. I remember the date. I didn't realize this date was going to be my breakthrough. It was November 7th, 2010. And I had just gotten home from another speaking weekend. Again, loved every minute of it. But here's the thing. It was Sunday night. My daytime job was I was an adjunct professor at Boston University at the time. My class was at 8 a.m. I hadn't looked at the syllabus. I don't know what book I told my students to read, let alone had I read it. I hadn't outlined my lecture notes. And I was just done and tired. And I said to myself, I can't do this anymore. But at the same time, I felt in conflict, because I knew this was my purpose. I loved every minute of it, but the way this was working, I couldn't take it. And so I prayed, Lord, if this is really what you want me to do, if this is really my purpose, you better show me something. Because I talked to God the same way I talked to everybody else. He knows I'm sassy, right? He made me. So literally, now I don't know if this was the next week. I feel like now that I tell the story it was the next week, but I'm sure it wasn't the next week. It probably was a month later, right? Because I didn't start documenting it because I didn't know that all the things that were happening after that tired moment were getting ready to shift everything. And so literally, in that next, I'm gonna say week, it could have been a month, I heard about a free webinar, something like this. I jumped on that free webinar. They invited me to come to a conference, pay for a ticket to go to that conference. By the way, I live in Boston. The conference was in California. That's already a $500 plane ticket. The ticket cost $500. And then I went by myself. So you can imagine my hotel stay. And I'm telling you that because I couldn't afford it, but I couldn't afford not to go. Then I went, met my first coach. My coach cost $30,000. Couldn't afford it. But I said, okay, Lord, listen, I'm going to invest. I had never invested in my business up until that point. Now, don't get me wrong. I had invested sweat equity, but I had invested cash equity. And I realized you give back what you put into your business. So to make a long story short, and I'm ending it here, so my coach, and I started working with her, she showed me. She said, Nicole, didn't you tell me you're an adjunct professor? You taught at USC. I'm from California, by the way. You taught at USC for 5 years. You moved to Boston. You now teach at Boston University. And what you teach is program development. Yeah. Right. All proud that my coach knows me. Right. Yeah. Right. Then she said, didn't you used to have a consulting firm when you lived in California and you went into businesses and you helped people build programs? You work with heads of state. You work with celebrities. You work with nonprofits. And I'm like, yeah. And so the next thing she said didn't just change my business. It changed my life. She said, you have no programs in your own business. So I'm going to stop it here. I literally started taking my intellectual property, creating various ways to serve people. And I went from 13,000 to 200,000 within that next 6 months. And so I share that story with you because what I learned in that moment makes me so empowered to be on podcasts like this. And so I know you're going to ask me some more questions, but that really is my story, is I started in a place where I didn't know what I didn't know. And many of you are in a place in your speaking business where you don't know what you don't know. And so hopefully the next few minutes we'll be able to conquer and peel back some layers of how I literally went from broke to bankable within 6 months. And I've been growing by leaps and bounds ever since.
You know, that's a significant place for us to start too, because where we are right now, people are looking around and going, this is not what my vision board looked like. Mm-hmm. Somebody must have tripped up my SMART goals, because this is not what my SMART goals look like.
Right.
And they're kind of trying to find a level ground to just kind of at least start to rebuild, but we don't know when that level ground will come about. Right. So, you know, for some, and this was an honesty moment for a lot of people, when this happened, they realized, no, I'm not making that much money in my business. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm not making that much money from selling books. I'm not making, especially from selling books.
Can I just tell you about selling books? Since you said that. So when my first book came out, let me tell y'all, and I'm very transparent, so I'm going to be all the way honest, okay? So I was already on a struggle bus. Y'all know that. You just heard it, okay? I call it being on a struggle bus because I was on it for 17 years, okay? So I was on the bus sitting deep with my seatbelt on for 17 years. So listen, when my first book came out, by the way, it got published by a publisher, okay? It's a whole long story of how I got a publisher, but I didn't have a publishing deal. So listen, my publisher called me my first quarter and said, you have the best-selling book in our publishing house. I was doing a cabbage patch. I was like, yes, I'm about to get paid. I'm about to quit my job. Yes. Do you know I got that check for a quarter? It was $300 for a quarter. Now, I can't even pay my car note for 3 months with $300. Well, I can't pay my car note for 1 month with $300. Let me keep it all the way real. I can't even buy groceries for an entire month with $300. So a book is not going to make you money. I'm sorry, you know, but it does let people see you for the authority, the expertise, the brilliance you have, but it's not going to make you money. It's not.
And, you know, coming into the industry, you think, oh, I need a book. Yes, you need a book for your brilliance. For you, to be able to
open doors,
yes, right. To be the expert in your industry. Yes, you need to be able to show people who you are, who you serve, how you serve. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's not going to be the $1 million maker. That's not going to be it.
Now, some people do get book deals, don't get me wrong, but when you're first starting out, the publisher is going to look at how many eyeballs you have. Yeah, when you start, you don't have any. Or you might have like a handful, but it's usually your aunt, your mom, your cousin. They don't count, right? I'm being honest.
Exactly.
And so in order for you to really get a lucrative book deal, you've got to be able to say, this is who my followers already are. And you show the value you're bringing to the publishing company, right? So, yeah.
And you know what? That steps us right into the next discussion, because we are in this place of, opportunities are about to start opening up,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to show them we're valuable. But this year, we may have had a whole bunch of canceled events.
Mm-hmm.
We may have had to cancel our own events. People are trying to do virtual and they're not really understanding the space. So how do I show my value, coming in where somebody else may be able to come in and say, well, look, this is this the resume. This it.
Right. Oh my God, that's such a loaded question. So I think I have a multiple part answer to that. Okay. So one, now you heard me tell my story. My problem was, you guys, and I'm always honest, is that for 17 years, I kept doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So the reason my business wasn't moving forward, and it speaks to now, so hang with me, is I would say, okay, I'm going to work an extra hour at night. Okay, now I'm going to work 4 hours on Saturday. Okay, now I'm going to work all day Saturday and work 4 hours on Sunday. And so what happens is when you're doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, if you look up insanity in the dictionary, isn't that the definition? So things are happening that are different right now. So you doing the same things you were doing aren't going to work right now. So here's the thing. I love being a speaker, right? And I know many of you guys do too. And listen, all my speaking gigs have been canceled. So what do? I have had to pivot. So you've got to either do one of two things. You've got to, if you don't know how to pivot, don't try to figure it out on your own, because there's a quote that Bishop A.R. Bernard, one of my favorites, that says the tools that you have used on this level are not sufficient for your next. I'm going to say that one more time because somebody needs to tweet that. The tools you have used on this level are not sufficient for your next. So my problem in my business for 70 years is I kept trying to use the same tools over and over. Yeah, bye, right? It wasn't until I hired a coach that could show me the tools I needed. So some of you need to hire someone that can help you, right? So even, let me be completely transparent. I have an annual event. I've hired a virtual team to help me. Right? Because I can teach, no problem. I can talk with my eyes closed. I got in trouble every day when I was little for talking too much. The name would be on a blackboard because I went to private school with all the checks. So talking is not an issue for me, teaching. But virtual is. If you're going to do something world class and you don't know how to do it, you've got to hire someone, a coach, a strategist, right? And so you've got to think outside of the box. Again, my issue in my business, now, not even just then, now it could be, if I wasn't willing to hire somebody that can help me, right? And so back then I called it sweat equity because I kept putting in more hours. And you heard me say I had to put cash equity in. It wasn't until I invested at the level to which I wanted to see the return that things shifted, not just then, but every level I come to in my business. I've got to invest in what I don't know.
And that goes with that transparency, because can we be real? Can we be honest? We have to take off the mask and say, I don't know it all.
Yep.
I know coming in, everybody wants to be able to say, I'm a keynote speaker. Everybody wants to be able to say, I can speak on a stage for 45 minutes to an hour. That is not the case. Blink, blink. That is not the case.
Just because you can talk for 45 minutes doesn't mean you're providing transformation for 45 minutes, right?
Exactly.
And so there's a difference. That's why you need coaching, speaking coaches like Altavis, so she can show you how to do it. Because if you're not doing it right, you're wasting your time. And listen, all the people that have events talk to each other. So then people are gonna be like, don't hire her. She can talk, but it ain't good, right? So you want to be clear that you've got to be strategic. The other thing that I was doing in my business, I was failing is, and let me speak to this. I'm sure you're going to ask me this, but I call it being the Milli Vanilli of your industry. Now, those of you that don't know who Milli Vanilli are, you're aging me, number one. But let me tell you quickly, they were out in, I think it was the early 90s or late 80s, and they had this song out called Don't You Know It's True? They won a Grammy. After their Grammy, I can't remember if it was their manager or their agent, ended up saying, hey, hold on, y'all, they lip synced on that track. So what happens is when you try to do stuff, like if I tried to do my business like Altavis, I would fail because my DNA in me wasn't put inside me to be her, just like hers wasn't put inside of her to be me. So I got to be clear that if I try to take a cookie cutter, I'm going to do it just like Oprah. I'm going to do it just like Beyonce. By the way, any of you that are trying to be like Beyonce, you wrong, because ain't nobody like Beyonce, okay? But anytime you try to be like anybody, you're going to fail because God didn't put DNA in you to be anybody but you. And so I see so many people out there saying, oh, well, she's doing her virtual with me, I'm going to do it just like that. Well, unless you have the team that she hired, you better sit your butt all the way down. Oh, I want to be a speaker. Okay, that's great. But here's the thing. If you're going to be a speaker and you're a great speaker and you get coached and you understand how to be a speaker, you are being irresponsible if you don't have another way for them to be transformed by you. What do I mean by that? You can transform someone or at least scratch the surface in a good 45 to 60-minute workshop or keynote. But there will be people that will say, oh my God, I need more from you. And if you cannot say, this is how we can work together, it's not about selling people, it's about serving people. And in this day and age, especially in this coronavirus where you might not be able to do one-on-one work, you might not be able to go, those of you that are corporate speakers and go into corporations, but there are ways you can work with people that you don't have to be present. And you've got to be willing to have that opportunity for people that need more from you. That's how your business is going to grow in this current climate.
Ooh-wee. You know, it's interesting having that conversation with women who are coming into the industry. It's different than when you're talking to men, for one.
Yeah.
Because men come in with a different confidence level.
But you know what that is? I think, you know what that is? I think we are ingrained. So men are ingrained to play with G.I. Joe and they're like Army. And so when you are learning to be on the battlefield when you're 3 years old or 4 years old, then you approach life like a battle that you can conquer. We are approached to nurture. You know, we play with our baby dolls, we play house. That's all nurturing. So we don't learn to conquer until we're out so some of us can shift really quickly and get into that. Yes, I can do that. No, you can't do it and you're going to figure it out. That's how men think. Women are like, I shouldn't tell them I can do it because I might not be able to. And I think that's the big difference is that we won't just say yes and then figure it out along the way.
Ooh, yes. Oh my goodness.
Right? Now,
my clients call me a cliff pusher for a reason. It's because sometimes you just need to
you just got to say yes. If it's somewhere near your wheelhouse, I call it your blueprint. If it's in your blueprint, I remember, and I'm going to be really, I've been transparent the whole time. So I remember when I got a first corporation called me, I ain't never worked in a corporation. I worked in entertainment and then I worked in nonprofit. And then now I'm teaching people the brilliance I learned as a nonprofit executive, how to actually, the teaching I did was in nonprofit management. So it's taking those same skills, meeting people where they are and teaching people how to do it in business, right? So when a corporation called me, I was like, ugh. So I was like, Nicole, don't say no, just listen. Listen, don't say no. Because my natural inclination was to say, girl, I ain't never worked in no corporation. That's what I wanted to say. But I listened. I didn't shoot myself down. I got off the phone. I wrote everything she said down. And this is why you need an accountability partner, right? So I called my accountability partner and I walked her through what she said. And here's what my accountability partner said. Nicole, you do all the stuff she said. And my accountability partner is a corporate coach, thank God. She said, let me interpret it for you in corporate language. So she interpreted, she said, call a woman back and say, I thought about it. But women automatically inside of me, I was wanting to say no. But I was like, don't say no, sit on it and marinate on it. And luckily I had someone I could call to tease it out. And so I think that becomes a big difference for us is really not saying no up front and giving yourself the time and space to figure it out.
And you made a good point with saying an accountability partner. Something that I'm always sharing is that accountability gives you a 95% chance of success.
Yes.
Hello, why wouldn't you have an accountability partner? But we think in our mind, our accountability partner is supposed to be our good girlfriend. It's supposed to be our best friend from high school. It's supposed to be no.
Can I tell you where I met my accountability partner? In a mastermind program. Now, she is my business bestie now because we've been together for so long. She knows my business and I know hers. So we're really good friends now. When I first met her, we weren't friends. And we've grown this relationship over time because we've been in business in the trenches together. And all my girlfriends at the time when I started my business, again, I've been doing this 27 years. I started at 23. So at 23, ain't nobody trying to start a business at 23 back then, right? Now it's chic for the little youngins. But back then, so I didn't have any friends I could talk to about any of this stuff, which by the way is why I was failing. And which by the way, had I hired a coach earlier in my career. And it was that coach, by the way, that same $30,000 coach that then I ended up spending more than 30. Hope my husband can't hear because I ended up also getting her mastermind, right? And so I couldn't afford it again, but it was all of that shifted everything for me. And it was in that mastermind that I met my accountability partner.
I absolutely love it. Accountability is something that's necessary. A lot of times that partner is going to be somebody who can see some things within you, see some things around you, because they have a different vantage point.
Yep. Yep.
They have a
And they'll
different
tell you the
vantage point.
truth. And they'll tell you the truth. And your girlfriends, like, I have wonderful supportive girlfriends. So if I want to go to happy hour outside of the state we're in, no problem. If I want to kiki, no problem. But to talk business strategy, all they can do is cheerlead for me. No discount. I need that too. But if they're not in, and now I do have girlfriends that are entrepreneurs, you know, that I've coached to help start businesses. But when I first started, and even let me say this, even with that, they're not where I am because they're just starting. So I can't call them and say, girl, I'm frustrated. What should I do? Or I got 3 options. Can I weigh them out with you? I can't do that with them. Well, I can, but I'm not going to get the answer that I need.
And that's the part that, because once we get the answer, I got to take action.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that I've watched you significantly do over the okay, so I haven't stalked you per se in the illegal way.
You saw if you saw the rise of my
right, exactly. I think it's been about at least about 5, possibly 6 years, maybe a little longer. So I've watched some significant things, and it's about the action. Like, okay, it's great to talk about it.
Come on.
It's great to write it down. It's great to shout it from the rooftops. But I need to see the work. We've come to a point, we've come to a fork in the road. And it's either, am I going to be about it, or am I just going to speak about it?
Come on.
It's a lot of people that are just speaking about it, and they're getting on stages and wanting to sell you a program to make $500,000 in a weekend and all of these things. But you don't see the actions that line up with that within their own business. You don't see the actions that line up with that within what they've been able to significantly do in their lives. And so I've been able to see that in just the 5 years. Now, I didn't even know it was 27 years.
Oh, because let me say, you didn't see me in the what I call it, what I tell you I called it a few minutes ago. Look, I am also 50, y'all, so I forget what I call stuff sometimes. I was on the broke down bus. That's not what I used to call it.
The struggle bus.
Struggle bus. There it is.
So
you didn't see me in the struggle bus days because I didn't know what I was doing. So nobody saw me, which is why I was in struggle. Hello, right? So it wasn't until after that you saw me, because then I began to shift because I knew what to do, you guys, right? So yeah, I'm not surprised it's only been 5, 6 years, because it's only been 10 that I knew what I was doing in my business. The first 17 were me trying to, look, ego was in the way, you know. And the thing is so funny, I was reading this book just about a week ago. And by the way, I read 3 books at a time, so don't ask me which book, because I don't know which of the 3 that it was in. But it says something about ego and ambition cannot coexist. Ego and ambition, because if you are full of ego, then you'll never go after what's next for you, because you feel like I've arrived. Like I am everything I need. That's what ego says, right? And I had to put on that voice because that's what I feel like ego does. But when you are really going after your next level, when you're really going after the next best version of who God created you to be, you're going to be coachable. You're going to be open to learn and grow. And so for the first 17 years of my business, I was full of ego. I'm going to tell you the truth. I was full of ego, and my job defined my gift. And so when I was failing, I couldn't tell anybody I was failing because I was full of ego. Now I'm comfortable with sometimes being brilliant and sometimes being clueless. I'm okay with sometimes knowing, oh my God, yes, this is great. And some things I am absolutely not good at. And I'm okay with that, because that's what, as long as we're in this flesh, you're going to live in the duality of being. You're going to be great at some things and you're going to be horrible at some other things. But are you okay with that? And the fact that I just shared with you that I was broken for 17 years, right? My husband asked me one day, when are you going to stop sharing that story? I said, why? You embarrassed? Get your life, because I'm never going to stop sharing that story. Because people need to understand that I too made mistakes. Am I making mistakes now in my business? Yeah, right? I would be lying to you if I told you everything was perfect. It's not always going to be perfect. But now I'm willing to quickly shift, quickly hire somebody, quickly find the solution so that I can learn the lesson in the breakdown and grow from it instead of staying stuck in it.
Okay, so that leads us to the final question. Oh, that was perfect. In your journey, have there been any blunders? Any times where you can look back and say, you know what, that wasn't the best idea or choice, but I can learn from it?
Oh my God, girl, we don't have enough time for me to tell you all the mistakes I've made in my business. Okay. So here's the main thing I think. So even in that big story I told you, because if I start another story, it'll make us go over on the podcast, right? So the 17 years that I was in failure. So what I kept not doing is stopping long enough to learn the lesson, right? And so what I've learned is there's seed, time, and harvest, right? And we've heard this over and over. But seed and time is two separate things. And so when a seed is planted, it's the time you spend with that seed that grows it. So sometimes you got to prune, right? So I think the times you make mistakes is a pruning happening. You either got to let go of some people. Maybe you hired the wrong people. Maybe it's the wrong program. Maybe it's the wrong iteration. I've had people hire me to coach them and they're like, ooh, well, that last coach, that last coach might have been your kindergarten coach. And now I'm your elementary coach, right? So don't discount what you learned. It might not have taken you all the way there, but you learned something, right? And so you've got to realize there's some pruning that happens. There's some fertilization. Some of y'all are using the wrong fertilizer, I'm just saying. So it's figuring out what water, how much water, maybe it's too much water. Maybe there's some things you've got to let go of. And so for me, in that first story I told you, now again, I've had several mistakes, hiring wrong people, doing wrong things, trying to be cookie cutter. I've done that too, right? I made a whole lot of mistakes. I feel like, so I try to not let my clients make them, but it's in that moment where you stop and listen to your soul. So the biggest thing I think I have learned is really learning how to tap into my being, right? Really sitting quiet and listening to God. And 9 times out of 10, you know you shouldn't be doing something, and you feel that gut inside of you. One of my clients calls it God uttering timeout. You hear your gut saying, "Girl, don't go in there." Even dating the wrong person, which is a whole conversation. But y'all know you've been there, right? Because I know I have. And so it's really stopping long enough to listen to that. And so if my ego hadn't been in the way for the first 17 years, because it was talking, but my ego was bigger than me listening to my spirit that was saying, this ain't right. You need to go sit down somewhere, right? And so I think the biggest lesson I learned is to let go of ego and to find help. And there's nothing wrong with finding help.
Oh my goodness. So guys, Speakeasy podcast listeners, I hope you were taking notes, because if you weren't, then you got to go back to the beginning and take some notes. It was necessary. Okay. With that
And
being
before you
said,
close, I know you're doing your closing. Can I give everybody a gift?
oh, most definitely.
Those of you that are ready to, so here's the thing, as a speaker, you have to be a CEO, okay? You've got to have a speaking business. So those of you that are ready to grow multiple streams of income in your business, I'm going to give you my free ebook called Bankroll Your Brilliance. Go to bankrollyourBrilliancebook.com. It walks you through 15 ways that you should be making money from your gift. And so if you're going to grow your speaking business, by the way, that was what was wrong with me. I didn't have one way. And by the way, when I had a max out coaching client roster, it was only one-on-one, which was only 5 clients. Because when you have a full-time job, you can't do but so much. So the 15 ways I walk you through are all ways. Some of them are what I call making money while you sleep. So again, that's bankrollyourBrilliance.com. I'm going to gift that to you so we can get you making more money in your speaking business.
That's right. That's right. Because if you are a speaker, an author, you are also an entrepreneur. You know, I drill that into you guys simply because I want you to start looking at it as a business, not just as a hobby. That part. Nicole, let them know how they can reach out to you if they want to work with you, or where they can find you at online.
Sure. So, you know, by the way, when you enroll for Bankroll Your Brilliance book, you're going to get an email from me. So guess what? You will have my email. Okay. And you will be in my database. So I'm being honest. I'm transparent. Number 1. Number 2, my new favorite thing is Instagram. So follow me on Instagram, N Roberts Jones. I love IG. I think Facebook is just so overcrowded. N Roberts Jones, and then my website, NicoleRobertsJones.com. So those are 3 ways. 1, get the book, BankrollYourBrillianceBook.com, N Roberts Jones Instagram, or come on over to my website, NicoleRobertsJones.com.
I love it. I love it. Speakeasy podcast listeners, this is why we have the platform for opportunities and moments like these. I want to know how this particular episode resonated with you. Shout out to all of you that have been reaching out and connecting and giving reviews. We appreciate you, because without the Speakeasy audience, there is no Speakeasy podcast. So with that being said, I'm your host, Out to These Pals, your voice manager. And until next time, guys, don't forget to press it out. See ya.